So I remember the first time that I was trying to define a feature as a product manager when you're just studying, and I was actually quite confused to think about what is the job that I had to do, what is that I had to describe, and well, let's try to figure out how can I explain this to the development team that is going to work on it. But the reality is that that's not the way to go in most of the cases. I was missing quite many things that the development team would need, but other people, other stakeholders will need some kind of information that I was not being able to provide at that point. I was just basically trying to describe a feature in a probably quite blunt way at that point. This is what a PRD or a product requirements document is going to try to help you address. Hey, Juan here. In today's video we are going to talk about product requirements documents or PRDs. One of our viewers has requested a video for this topic, so here we go. Remember, if you want to hear about something, just let me know in the comments. So a PRD or a product requirements document is going to try to explain what is the scope of a feature, but not just what is the scope, what it's going to do in practice, but it's also going to talk about what is the goal and what are the benefits for the end users. So it's trying to take a holistic point of view of what feature or product you are building. Product requirement documents, from my point of view, has to be defined for each feature, but also for each product. So you are able to make sure that even individual features have a story and a background and a vision of what they are trying to achieve and how do these help the bigger picture of the whole product. There are many templates and documents and articles out there on how to define PRDs. So in this video I'll go through the 5 most important points that you should be looking when defining a PRD. First of all, you had to have a goal or a vision that you had to achieve, that you want to achieve as a company, as a product, as a product manager, that you want to address a problem from a user by giving them a solution. This is what you had to define. So you had to be able to identify a problem, you had to be able to understand who are the users that this problem is affecting to. Typically, not all of your users are going to be affected by this problem. And certainly, there is never going to be any feature or any product that is going to solve a problem for everybody out there. That's just a myth. And finally, you are also have to define what is the solution that you are bringing for your customers. And it's also good that you take the point of view of what are the actual benefits that the user gets from using this feature or this product. Because only describing a problem and a solution is not necessarily very obvious what are the real benefits for the user. So you have to take that perspective as well, that why should a user use your product, or why should a user take advantage of this new feature and how this is going to help them. So this is going to be very important to take this point of view, because this is going to be much easier then to explain the story to others of what you are trying to achieve. The second step is going to be defining the features that are going to be included in this product or in this feature. Once you define your features, this is going to help you to prioritize these features. Which ones are the ones that you have to have first and which ones can come later? And when do they need to be released for the product to be a proper MVP when you release it to your users? So when you define your features, you have to take, again, what is the different benefits that those features are going to bring to your customers, and build then the story of what is the whole value of the whole product. The next one that you will have to take a look into is the releasing and the phasing potentially of the project. So how are you going to be releasing it? When do you think that this is going to be releasable? And how are you going to phase it over time? This doesn't mean that you have to release everything in one go. So we have described the features previously. Do we need to have all those features ready for the first time that we release the product? You probably have heard the concept of MVP, minimum viable product. I will link a video up here so you can go and take a look if you don't know what it is. So when you define what is your phasing, how are you going to phase those features? Which ones are the ones that you have to take first? Which ones are the ones that you have to take later? Then you are able to start thinking about a very high level release plan. I don't necessarily mean that you have to have a release schedule to say that by this exact date we are going to release. That's not what I mean. It's just that you have an understanding of how this is going to be laid out over time. How am I going to take potentially first some set of features that I think that are necessary for the minimum viable product, and which ones are the ones that I think that should come later. And here potentially you can look into something like a Moscow framework that helps you to define what must be in the product, what should be in the product, what could be in the product, and what is not going to be in the product. Again, I have another video about this one, so I'll link it up here. The fourth thing that you're going to have to pay attention to is product design. Product design is what is going to help you define the experience that your user is going to have when they are using your product. This is something that is very, very important to understand and to have a clear concept of what kind of product design and what kind of experience do I want my users to have when they're using my product. Do I care about easy to use, or I don't mind that there might be some complicated steps because this is a product defined only for expert users. So this is something that I had to define, and what kind of experience I want to give to my users. And finally, there's going to be the success metrics. So how do I define the product to be successful? How do I know that this product, this feature that I have built is actually a success? There's many ways of defining success metrics or success KPIs. And if you're interested, I will link again another video up here about success metrics. But success metrics are very important for one reason. First of all, they give you a goal. They give you a milestone that you will hope to achieve. But they also make sure that when you release something, you are tracking the performance of this new feature or this new product that you have released, that you understand how it's evolving over time, how people are adopting it, how people are engaging with it. Are people actually staying with your product, or they find a better solution to go and work with? So this is why success KPIs and defining those ones from the beginning of the project is going to help you to set some goals for what do you think that this feature should be in the future. And remember, success KPI sometimes is not something that is so easy to set, especially if you are in a greenfield area. Sometimes it's more like a guesstimate than a realistic estimation. You have to be able to identify what are the most important things that potentially are going to define the success of your product. Even if you don't realistically know what is the precise metric that you should be achieving, but you should be able to understand that retention is a very important thing for me, or ratio of certain type of user personas that are using my product that could be taking advantage of this new feature that I'm bringing just specifically for them. Are they really using it or not? So success metrics are going to help you understanding the success of an implementation, potentially the lack of success of it, and do I need to work more on it to make it better in the future. So a very quick example of product requirement definition could be, if you think about Tesla, what Tesla is trying to do, or what Tesla was trying to do in the very beginning. They were just trying to move, and I'm talking only about Tesla cars in this case, no robots, no solar panels, no nothing like that. But in the beginning, they were trying to do, they're trying to help the environment by transitioning towards renewable energies as a source for transportation. The features that the car has to have, obviously, the first one, it has to be a car. The second one is that it has to be an electric vehicle. It has to use some kind of renewable source of energy. It cannot be that it's using something like a diesel or petrol. And finally, they focus a lot on the experience of the user. They wanted that the user experience is something that it has to feel like a modern car. And then another one that they actually probably has put as a could have or out of scope at this point is that quality in the very beginning is not gonna be the key. And I'm not meaning that the quality overall of the car, but more like the quality of the finishes. That's something that they have probably consciously left a little behind, and that when they are scaling in the future, once the cars start to be more profitable, then they start to be able to address. And you can see that the quality of the products of the different cars have improved over time. But most of the times when you see cars in the similar price range, the quality of the finishings inside of a Tesla, they are not the same as those ones in the competing brands. Then of course Tesla have a release time. Tesla has been quite ambitious with these release days that they have had, and most of the times they have not achieved them. But what they have really achieved is that they have been able to tell you the story of what they were going to build. Start for a very, very expensive car that would help them prove the concept MVP, go to a still expensive car that would then be profitable, that the company could start making money out of it, and then move to making cars that are affordable for most of the people. And you could say that this is the roadmap that they have been following. You could argue that Model X was a little bit out of that plan, and you can still argue that Model 3 didn't end up being as cheap as it was hoped to be. But it's still going the direction of making much more affordable cars, and they are nowadays talking about the whatever name is going to be the next model, that is the $25,000 model. I cannot tell what the success metrics that Tesla has set for themselves, obviously. I'm guessing that the success metrics that Tesla has been following had to do a lot with the different batches of cars that they had released, how many cars were they going to be in each batch, how much production per week, per day, per year, I'm not completely sure how they measure it, are they able to achieve, how can they ramp up that production on the long term, how they are growing the Tesla supercharger network. That's probably some of the key things, because in the beginning there was not that supercharger network, and probably this is one of the key factors why Tesla has been so successful when it comes to mass adoption of electric vehicles. So in all honesty, I don't have a PRD template that I could share with all of you here, because in practice I'm not using something exactly like a PRD. I'm using something more like a pitch deck. And yes, it touches quite many of the similar things, but it has some other things that sometimes PRDs don't touch on. So typically in a pitch deck, you are going to take into account things like a go-to-market. How are you actually going to take this product to the market? So that's why typically I work more with something like a pitch deck instead of a PRD to define what a new product is or what a new feature is. So if you're interested in me talking about how to build a pitch deck potentially for a feature, not necessarily for a startup, but you can do the same thing when you are building a new product or a new feature, let me know in the comments below. I will see you in the next video, and remember, stay safe.